I read some really good books this year, so you guys are gonna wanna take note of these. Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nellie and I love to read, and I love to yap about books and share it with you guys here on YouTube. If you're here for the first time, and if you've been here before, welcome back. Today's really exciting because I actually just decided to film this video 5 minutes ago, and I think it's going to be really fun. I have a few gifts that I need to wrap, and I'm trying to finish up some Christmas crafts. It would be fun to do my end of year book tag while I'm making my paper chains, chat to you guys while I'm doing it. I am just going through some book tag questions that I got originally. I think it was Destiny Sidwell that did this, and I have them very small on my computer, so I'm like trying to zoom in here. But if you see me looking down, it's because that's what I'm doing. I have a few gifts that I need to wrap. I only have about like 50% of everything wrapped, but I feel like the other 50% just hasn't come yet. We're cutting it a little bit close because it is the 18th today. But I do have a few things, like just very small things that need to be wrapped. And I finally got some wrapping paper today, which I'm so excited about. I just love walking through Target or wherever I go and just like taking little wrapping things and putting them next to each other. I should show you the other wrapping paper that I have. Okay, so just so you guys can get a full effect, I'll show you the wrapping paper that I just finished up. So it looks like this. And then I have like a Christmas plaid, which I thought would be so pretty. This one is from Hearth and Hand, and this is just from Minted from Target. And then I also have like this really pretty, they're like Christmas trees, and instead of the snow on them being white, it's kind of like metallic, which is so pretty. Like, look at that. Isn't that so fun? I like it to look like it's more traditional, so definitely traditional colors, but also just like a blend. And then I have my special, if you know what I'm talking about, wrapping paper that is separate for this, because in our family we have a kind of wrapping for the gifts that we give each other, and then the special gifts from, you know, SANTA, that comes with a different wrapping paper. Because if you didn't know, I have two kids, a 4 and a 7-year-old, so we keep the magic alive in our house. Just wanted to say that in case you guys saw the wrapping paper and were wanting to know where I got it. But yeah, I just have a few things to wrap. This is gonna be so casual. So I'm probably gonna tell you about the gifts that I'm wrapping and also go through these questions. Should be fun though. Okay, so the first question is the most disappointing book of the year. This is hard. I think I'm gonna have to think about this one. I feel like that's really tough. I'm trying to think. I guess my mind's kind of going of like books that other people liked that I really didn't like. I feel like for me, I'd have to go with 2 of them. I would say first, I did try to read Normal People. I read it last month. I actually finished it in a day. I found like the writing was really easy to read and quite addicting, but the ending made me seriously so angry, you guys. Like, I wanted to throw this book against the wall. I pretty immediately put it in my unhaul pile because I'm not afraid to get rid of a book if it made me angry. And yeah, I didn't enjoy that one, and I was bummed because I had heard good things about it, and so that was one that I felt like I was just bummed by. I think another one that I didn't love personally was the continuing books in the Fourth Wing series. Like, I remember that I was super excited after reading Fourth Wing. Like, I loved Fourth Wing. I devoured it to continue on in the series, and for some reason they just did not hit for me. I read Fourth Wing when I was getting back into reading. I've always been a reader, but I just feel like between having babies and having young kids, it's just been a little bit more difficult for me to read. And so Fourth Wing was me entering back into reading. I felt that it was very fast paced. I really liked it, but I think just like as I grew as a reader again, and maybe just like my likes and dislikes changed, I kind of felt like I just outgrew the series, if that makes sense, which is a bummer because I really loved Fourth Wing. I was really excited about it, but now I'm just kind of at that point where like I don't even know if I care that much to finish the series, which I feel bad saying. Maybe I will, but it's just like not something that I'm really pushing to read, if that makes sense. I seriously just love this wrapping paper. Wow, this is gonna be chaotic. I don't think I mentioned what was in here, but you can kind of tell probably from listening to it. My husband and I are very much like, when it comes to Christmas, giving to each other, we like to give each other more of like stocking stuffers, and you're probably like, Nellie, that doesn't fit in a stocking. I just mean like we like to give each other smaller
things. Like, we're not really into giving each other really expensive things. We just like giving each other thoughtful, smaller things. And we don't have a Costco membership anymore. We actually just switched to Sam's just because it's literally a block from our house. But he loves the Costco chocolate almonds, and I went with my friend the other day and I got him a big tub. So that's what's in this package. Question number 2, what was an underdog book? I didn't really look at these questions beforehand, so you can really see like me thinking, and I'm looking over at my shelves as I'm saying this, but underdog book. I feel like I'm taking that to mean a book that I hadn't heard a ton about, or a book that I didn't think was gonna be one of my favorites and then it became one of my favorites. I'm gonna go with an indie book, and that is gonna probably be Forever and Back by Ashley Manley. She's actually a local author. She's either in North Carolina or South Carolina, but I know she personally drops her books off at my local bookstore. And the reason why I'm gonna pick her is because I read her book Forever and Back, and then the sequel to it, which is called Now to Forever, I wanna say. And then I also read another book by her this year, and I can't even remember what it was called. But I've loved every single book, and specifically I'm gonna mention Forever and Back. That one is what sparked my love for the marriage in crisis trope in romance. It was done so fantastically well. Just me as somebody who's been married for now, how long have I been married for? Almost 9 years now. What it feels like to be postpartum and feel like maybe you're kind of losing yourself and you don't recognize yourself in the mirror. Just the whole new mother experience and just the experience of motherhood in general so well. Like, I felt so seen, even though my marriage wasn't struggling in the way that the people in this book, like theirs, were struggling. I loved that book so much, so I'm gonna have to go with that one. I feel like not a lot of people have read it, so if you're into second chance romance / the marriage in crisis trope, I feel like that would be one that you would enjoy for sure. Okay, what was an overhyped book that you read? I feel like there are a few for me that I read this year. Because I got back into reading more heavily this year, there was a lot of books that I had heard about in the past, people have read a while ago, that I feel like are just super hyped up. One of them for me was Caraval. I'd heard such incredible things, and I think it just maybe wasn't for me. Like, I thought it was interesting. I didn't think it was anything to write home about for me. If you don't know, that one is a series, and it's about this girl who follows her sister into, it's basically this mystical island that is also hosting a game. Like, it's almost kind of like a carnival vibe kind of a thing. She's looking for her sister, and if you win, you get a certain prize, and it's this game. This game is put on by this really mysterious person named Legend, and people die in this game. It's very interesting. I think it's just one of those that the premise was really interesting, but I didn't connect to the writing, and I found the characters to be a little bit annoying. I think another one for me, and this is just one for me that I wish hit harder, but was Quicksilver by Callie Hart. I enjoyed that book. It was just a solid 3-star book, but I know a ton of people love it, and I wanted to love it so bad. You probably already know what Quicksilver is about, but Quicksilver is essentially about this girl who lives in a really struggling, like, human kingdom and trying to protect her brother. She ends up getting in trouble with this government system that there is. I believe there's a queen, and she ends up coming to the palace, and while in the palace there's this mysterious substance called Quicksilver, and for some reason she can, like, command it, and through this Quicksilver portal, this Fae warrior comes through and ends up taking her back to his world. I'm actually not quite sure why that one didn't work out for me. I did enjoy the graphic audio, but I felt like it was a little bit rinse and repeat for me of reading just other romances. Like, I felt like this is nothing new that I'm reading, and this isn't the best ever at what it's trying to do. Does that make sense? Like, that's kind of how I felt about that. Okay, the next thing I'm gonna wrap, by the way, are some gloves. They are for my husband when he plays pickleball. He needs like a thinner glove that still keeps his hands warm because he's been playing for a long time and his hands get really cold in the wintertime. I also got these at Costco. So we're gonna wrap those next. Another book that I might say for me was a little bit overhyped was When the Moon Hatched. I enjoyed that book. Again, like, it's not one that I didn't like, and it's definitely one that I enjoyed, but I think for me, something about it, I just didn't connect with the characters as much. I really liked the lore of, like, the dragons and the detail with each type of dragon. I loved the idea that when they pass away, they fly up into the atmosphere and essentially crystallize themselves into a moon, and how there's like hundreds or thousands of moons in this place. I loved that idea, and there were a lot of things I liked about it, but I felt like that book felt so long to me, and there were parts of the book that I'm like, did we really need this? The next prompt is a book that surprised me. Okay, I could literally name whole genres that surprised me because I got into historical fiction this year and never thought I would have, and that's because of Kristen Hanna. I ended up reading The Great Alone and The Nightingale this year, and I loved both of those. And I was surprised that I loved them, even though I knew they had such incredible reviews. And it truthfully is just because those are genres that I don't feel comfortable with. I thought before this year I didn't like reading sad books, and not the case. Apparently I do like it because it makes me feel something, and then I get really connected to the characters. I think another book that really pleasantly surprised me was Belladonna, and that entire series, honestly, because I had previously tried to read Belladonna and I was just like, this is clearly not for me. Like, I don't like this series. And I don't know what happened. Maybe it was just the wrong time, because this year when I read it, I absolutely loved it. I devoured that entire series back to back to back, which honestly was such a fun experience. I want to do that more. I feel like I should maneuver this camera so that you can actually see me rapping. I apologize for that. I feel like I should do that more because I had such a fun experience doing that, and just loved those books. Like, I loved how atmospheric it was. I love the subject material. I always love when there's a character that personifies death. I love that. I loved every single book in that series. I think I gave every single book 5 stars, and if I didn't, thinking back, I totally would change my rating to 5 stars. There's my tape. I really enjoyed that series and highly recommend it, specifically for spooky season months, but I also feel like it feels like a winter read at the same time. I don't know why. I think it's meant to be more of like a spooky time read, but I think that would make a great wintry book. Who is your favorite book couple or couples of the year? Ooh. Okay, so recently one that I have really loved was The Second Death of Locke by V.O., and I loved that couple. Gray and Kier were like my everything. I don't know why I felt like I connected to them so much, but I feel like I just did. The Second Death of Locke is a fantasy standalone, and what I loved about it is that in that world magic system, the magic has to be accessed by 2 people. So we have the one that's called the Well, and they have the magic inside of them, but they cannot access it to use it, and so they train in combat to protect their mage, and now the mage can siphon this magic from their well and use it in particular ways. So for example, Kier has a specialty with the body and specifically with the heart. Like, he can stop a heart, kind of like a heart render in the Grishaverse if you've ever read Six of Crows or Shadow and Bone. That magic system was so cool, and I think I loved that couple so much because there was so much longing, and the way that she wrote their story, it was so romantic even when she wasn't writing about the romance, if that makes sense. Highly recommend that one. Other than that, I mean, I also read Throne of Glass this year, so I would probably be remiss if I didn't talk about like Aelin and Rowan. I loved their relationship. I loved Alid and Lorcan. I just think that series really endears you to a lot of the couples. Who are your favorite main characters of the year? Okay, favorite main characters. Okay, since we're already on the Throne of Glass train, I feel like I'd have to mention Alid. I loved her story so much. I think that she had such strength, even being somebody who had basically a disfigurement or a disability. If I remember correctly, she had been abused and she walked with a limp because I think she was never allowed to heal properly. She had such a dedication to her country and to her queen. I honestly just love seeing that. Like, she had such a strength even though she wasn't a fighter, and I really appreciated that. I also ended up getting Dubai chocolate. If you know, you know. This is something that I told Tim that I wanted for Christmas when I was at Costco, and I was just like, am I allowed to just get this and wrap it for myself? And he's like, of course. So I am wrapping this for myself. You wouldn't be able to tell by how I am wrapping, which I have to say, I totally blame that on having double-sided tape. I am one of those people that doesn't like double-sided tape, but I love wrapping and I love getting really crisp, really well-wrapped packages and giving them, but I feel like it's harder for me with double-sided tape. Like, it just doesn't, I don't know, maybe I'm just not used to using it. Who's a new favorite author you discovered this year? Ooh, I have a few. Okay, so I have to say Rachel Gillig. I read her Shepherd King series, which is One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns this year, and I absolutely loved her writing in that. I think that she had such a beautiful atmospheric way of writing. Those books are so good as well. I really loved them. There's like a magic system that almost reminds me of tarot or playing cards, because depending on the card that you have, you can access those abilities. So for example, the Maiden card, if you're using the Maiden card, you become more beautiful. And it's really interesting. There's also this curse upon the land and this legend that says if you unite this deck, if you have one of each of the 12 cards, then you can lift the fog and lift the curse on this people. And it's really interesting. And I love the love story in that as well. Also, speaking of atmospheric, I'm also going to mention Adeline Grace with the Belladonna series, because even though I did read Belladonna or try to read it 2 years ago, she didn't become one of my favorite authors until this year. Another favorite author that I feel like I have to mention is Rebecca Ross. I also love her writing, and it's also because she's a very atmospheric writer. I feel like those 3 authors really could tell you the kind of books that I like to read. I like to read very atmospheric, almost haunting, but not necessarily anything that's gory or anything like that. I love a story. I love a good storyteller. I want the writing to feel like it takes me to another place, like it's almost poetic, and that's how I feel about those authors. I think they're just so talented at what they do. What is the happiest book you read this year? The happiest book I read this year. That's kind of tricky because I like to read emotional reads, and so I'm trying to think. None of the books that I read this year, I don't feel like any of them were happy all throughout. Maybe I could say Pride and Prejudice. I did read Pride and Prejudice. I've been a longtime lover of the movie that has Keira Knightley in it, but I read that book this year and I listened to it on audio and it was so fun. I loved the banter of all of the characters, and yeah, I feel like the feeling I had when I read it, I could describe it like that for sure. What is the most frustrating book you read this year? I feel like I kind of already mentioned this, but I have to say Normal People by Sally Rooney, because it just frustrated the absolute ever-loving crap out of me. Like, I just was so frustrated that we kept going around and around in the same circle over and over again. And I feel like I've had other books that were like that with toxic characters and I actually liked them. For example, Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings, but it did not work for me in Normal People. It did not work for me. The next one says, what is the best book adaptation of the year? And I'm trying to think, because I'm like, does that mean a book that was adapted from a movie? Does that mean a movie that was adapted from a book? I think that's what it means, like a movie that was adapted from a book, but I feel like I haven't read very many adaptations this year, so I feel like I can't really answer that. What is the longest book you read this year? Oh gosh, maybe Kingdom of Ash. Like, I think it would for sure have to be Kingdom of Ash if I'm thinking about it, because that book was so long. Let me go see what the page count was on that. Holy cow, it has 980 pages. Look at this brick. This definitely wins for my longest book of the year. There's no question. I will say though, that book did not feel long. Like, I've read books that I could feel their length, and that was not one of them. That, I felt like it was so fast paced and every chapter was so needed, especially after the tandem read. I would say don't be intimidated by the length of that book. What is the shortest book you read this year? Okay, I did read a novella. It was called He Answers to Grief. It is an indie published book, and I actually recommend this if you've experienced the loss of a loved one. I read it around a grief anniversary this year. I felt like it was so needed and so just cathartic for me. It was about a girl who just lost her dad. She's having a really hard time just processing it and dealing with it in a healthy way. And then this dog shows up and she takes care of this dog, and while she's taking care of this dog, she starts living again, and it's just really beautiful. The main character learned like such good lessons that really touched me, I felt like, when I read it. What were your favorite covers of this year? Ooh, okay, I'm already thinking of, I read the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy and I bought the UK covers and I love those, so I'm gonna say that. If you haven't read that and you like atmospheric writing, I really think that you would like that. I preferred that to Caraval. I feel like, I don't know if that's a popular or a hot take, but that's just how I felt about it. I didn't love Caraval, but those covers are stunning. I feel also that the Belladonna trilogy, that their covers are stunning, specifically Wisteria. I think Wisteria is so beautiful, and the fact that the actual naked hardback is beautiful as well. Gotta love that. This year I also bought special dust jackets for my series, my paperback series, and those are covers I absolutely love. Those are done by Frostbite Studios and I'm just stunned in awe of those covers. I didn't mention what this was, but this is a hair paste. So another little stocking stuffer for my husband. What I try to do, I don't know if you can tell, is like each one of us has our own wrapping paper, and then that makes it so that I don't have to address each one. And then it also makes it fun because then under the tree we can see all of the different wrapping papers that we have working together to just kind of add to the aesthetic. I don't know, it makes it really fun. A book you haven't stopped thinking about. Okay, I already know what this is going to be. It just took it to the book basket party, and that is Blood Over Brighthaven. I have not stopped thinking about this book. Blood Over Brighthaven is a standalone fantasy and it is so good. It is one of those books that really just has the best first chapter. It will suck you in immediately. You will love it. You will be so bought in. You will have to know what happens next. And I also loved it. I've mentioned this before, but what it teaches about self-reflection and your own bias, your own, what is it called? Your own prejudices is really, really incredible. I think it's a really important read, honestly, which is, I know it's a fantasy, but for a fantasy to make me feel and make me question myself so much, like that is the kind of fantasy I want to read. The world building is so cool. The magic system is so cool. I just really, really loved that. You guys, this is a little bit of a gag gift for my husband. I don't know if I should show this. Maybe you guys don't. This, I remember what this is. This is a bit of a gag gift for my husband. I'm not going to mention what it is because, yeah, if you are, for those of you with delicate sensibilities, but it's a candle, but it just says something really funny on it. Next one is the cringiest read of the year. That's a tough one. Oh, and I always struggle with this because I don't want to be mean. It's like, what if I say a cringy book is something that someone watching it loves, and I don't want anyone to ever feel like I'm making fun of something that they like? That's a really tough one. Normally when I feel like a book is cringe, when I say that, it's that I feel like the writing feels Wattpad-y normally. Like it feels like it needed more rounds of editing. I luckily don't feel like I really read a ton of those this year. I'm trying to think. Oh, there was one that I read. Which one was it? It was a fall romance and it was called Fall I Want. And I could not get through that book, you guys. The reason why I felt like it was so cringy is because that book was like pure dialogue. Basically our two main characters just being like, this is why I'm devoted to you, and this is why I'm devoted to you, and this is why I like you. And it was almost like they were fighting over who was into the other person more. All they did was talk about how into each other they were. That's how I felt. Like it was pure dialogue and I just didn't enjoy it. I didn't feel like their relationship progression made sense. I felt like they moved so fast and it just kind of left the reader kind of like, wait, I don't get it. Didn't they just meet? Very, very confusing to me. Again, apologies. If that is your favorite book, that's okay. Because you know what? You could take some of the books that I love, my favorite books, and you might hate those. And that's okay. You'd be wrong, but you could hate them. I'm just kidding. What is an unpopular book that you loved? An unpopular book that I loved? That's kind of tough when you think here. I feel like because it's my first year back into reading, I read kind of quite trendy things. So I'm trying to think of something that I loved that other people didn't. Kind of coming up blank. Oh, I know what I should say. It's Abby Jimenez's new release. What is that called again? I'm picturing the cover in my head so clearly. What is it? Oh, Say You'll Remember Me. That's what it's called. I heard so many people really hating on that book, and I had already bought it because I'll buy anything that Abby Jimenez writes, and I heard so many people saying such awful things about it, how they hated it, like it just was not a good follow-up to her last book. And while I feel like nothing might ever live up to Just for the Summer and Yours Truly for me, because those are my favorite books by her and I seriously love them, and as I've read her back, I haven't loved the rest of her books as much. I had such a good time with Say You'll Remember Me, and I thought it had a lot of heart. And I also, oh, my sister's calling. Yo, I'm filming a video, but I'm almost done. But do you need anything? Okay, love you, bye. I think that Xavier, the MMC in that book, was so thoughtful. Like, he was somebody who was just so good at taking care of other people and anticipating needs, which I think just in today's society, that's not a very male characteristic to have. And it definitely was born out of his trauma. He was not somebody who was taken care of very well by his parents, and so he just wanted to take care of everybody else, and I thought it was so sweet. Just the ways that he thought of not only our female main character, but also our female main character's family, because our female main character's mom is going through early onset dementia and it's only gonna get worse. And he was just so thoughtful and loved her so much. And yeah, I just loved that book. I didn't get why people were hating on it. I really didn't. I had such a great time with it. Next is lowest rated on Goodreads and highest rated on Goodreads that I read, and do I agree? Okay, I need to find my phone for this one. Actually, just kidding. I have my laptop in front of me. Okay, so I'm going to sort it by rating. So let's go to red. And then how do I sort by rating? Okay, so it says the lowest rated one that I read this year is actually a novella. So I'm not really going to count that. But if you're wondering, it is Fracture Me, which is the second novella in the Shatter Me series. But the lowest rated one is actually the Pumpkin Spice Cafe. And I feel like, funnily enough, even though I think that a 3.3 is a good rating, do I feel like it's the worst book I read this year? No. So I don't know if that's quite warranted. The average rating is 3.36 though, and I do feel like that goes with that book, but I've definitely read worse books this year. I definitely read worse books. Now for the highest rating. Oh, the highest average rating was Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. And I wholeheartedly agree. It's actually tied with the Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon, Volume 4, which I'm loving that series. Do I think it's on the same level as Kingdom of Ash? No. But I feel like you can't even compare the two. So for Kingdom of Ash being the top book, I feel like I'm good with that. I am shocked though that The Nightingale is at number 3, because in my opinion, I feel like it should be number 1. Like, it's so good. So I would say agree and disagree on those. Okay, the next says favorite book quotes of the year. Ooh, that's a tough one. I don't have any like offhand, but I will say there are quite a few books that I annotated the crap out of this year. I have to mention, just because of recency bias, that I just finished the Jasad Air, and it had some really beautiful quotes in it. Not only just romantic quotes, because I love the romantic quotes where it talks about like how the main character would burn down the world for the person that he's in love with, but also it just had some really good introspective quotes that I thought was really good. That one I would relate to Throne of Glass, how there is a rebellion going on, a hidden identity, and the world building in that was so, so good. I think it's just based off of like Middle Eastern culture, and I thought that was really, really cool. What other books? I already mentioned Forever and Back by Ashley Manley. That one I felt like had a lot of really good quotes, again, just about the female experience of becoming a mother and going through postpartum and feeling like you don't know who you are. I think those two are the ones I'm gonna stick with. I'm powering through these questions. I'm almost done. Okay, let's see. The book with the most unique concept you've read this year. Ooh, that's a really good question. What is the book with the most unique concept? Okay, I feel like I've got to pick 2, just because I didn't think about this beforehand, and I'm reacting to them as you're seeing this, which is kind of fun, I think. But I feel like I'm gonna have to say, number 1, The Lovely War. If you've not read The Lovely War, it is so good. If you've been wanting to get into historical fiction and you come from a fantasy background, I feel like The Lovely War is just the perfect book for you, because first of all, it is 2 different love stories that occur during World War II, and not in Germany, they're in France at the time. But these 2 love stories are actually told by Greek gods and Greek goddesses that followed these 2 couples throughout their, like, the start of their relationship all the way through to the end. And the story was told so beautifully because of that. It starts out with Aphrodite, who has been unfaithful to her husband, and he basically makes her stand trial for being, she ends up turning it on its head and being like, I know that you don't value my work as the goddess of love. Like, you don't see the value in love itself, but love can change everything. And so she tells these 2 stories, and she invites other Greek gods or goddesses throughout the story. One is important and impactful for them to come in. And it's really, really interesting because, for example, when she calls in Hades, the god of death, you know that someone is being shepherded into the afterlife that you have grown to care for. And so it's really, really cool. If we're hearing from Ares, the god of war, then we know it's going to be the specifics about the war or just like strategy. And it was really, really interesting. And then again, I have to go back to Blood Over Brighthaven. That magic system was just a stroke of pure genius. It was so incredibly told. I do not even know how ML Wong came up with that concept, specifically that magic system. It was so beautiful. It was so interesting in the way she explained it. Even somebody like me who doesn't typically understand those kinds of things really understood it. I wasn't confused. I could picture everything right in front of me. I'm done wrapping. So I think I'm going to keep going on my paper chain. I wanted to hang this in my kids' room to make it a little bit more festive. But just so you know what I'm doing, I've got like my 4 gifts that I had up here already wrapped. So we're gonna go from there. I really tried to focus on making the links a lot fatter this year because look how cool this looks. The way that it's kind of maintaining this cube shape. I've seen this on social media, and so I tried it, and basically what I did was I just took a construction paper and I sliced it in 4, and I just have like this little pattern going that I love. So very cute, very affordable. Okay, so books you read this year that you would reread. Okay, I already know I'm gonna want to reread The Jessad Heir. As much as I've loved The Jessad Heir, then I'm going to want to reread it. The reason being is I didn't annotate it, and looking back, I should have just stopped and got my annotation supplies out, but it was so quotable that I feel like I definitely want to reread that at some point. I don't know if I'll get to it next year, maybe I will, but that's one that's been on my mind. Reflect on your Goodreads reading goal for 2025 and your 2026 reading goal. Okay, so I originally started out wanting to read 50 books this year, and I ended up, I think I'm on my 192nd book. So yeah, I will say I blew that out of the water quite a bit. I've been thinking about this a lot and how I don't necessarily want to set a goal next year for 200, even if I am very close to meeting that, and I might need that this year. Just because I do feel like now I have figured out by reading those 200 books what I like and what I don't like, what I enjoy versus what I might have enjoyed back at the beginning of my reading experience. And so because of that, I feel like I've found somewhat of these specific niches within genres, because I will say I am a multi-genre reader. I like going to different genres, but I found my niches within each genre now that I like. So because of that, I feel like I will not just be consuming every single book I can get my hands on, which is kind of how I feel like I was trying to catch up this year, because it's been so long since I've been reading a ton, and I finally feel like I'm at a point in my life where my kids are old enough to start to entertain themselves and I might have more time that I'm actually able to read now. I think that I just got excited, and that's okay. Like, I'm not knocking myself for reading that much, but I just feel like I don't know that it's sustainable. And so part of me has thought about setting a Goodreads goal for next year of 100 books, because I do feel like there were 100 books this year that I read that were like, I could have read that. Like, I don't really care that I read that. I don't care to reread it. And so I'm hoping really more so for this year to slow down, find books that I absolutely love that are things that I singularly am into, because I think I also just read a lot of like trendy books this year, and now I know just more about what I like to read. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking for next year. That kind of leads into the last question, which is what will you prioritize in your 2026 reading year? And I feel like, again, just slowing down, I really want to read what sounds good to me, not just what's trending. I feel like it's really easy for me to just want to read what's trending, but I want to really sit down and like read the back of a book and be like, does this actually interest me, or am I just wanting to buy this because everybody and their mom is reading it? Because of that, unless I'm really wanting to read something like I know the author, or it's just a concept that I'm dying to read, I think I'll probably wait as far as new releases, like maybe not read them right away. That way when the hype dies down, I will be left with, wait, do I actually want to read this? Is the desire to read this still there? I'll know after the hype dies down if I'm still thinking about it, then it is a book that I want to prioritize and I want to read. Does that make sense? I think another thing is I want to prioritize just going into a bookstore with no thought of trending books and just sit and look at covers and read the backs of books and really get engrossed into the summary of a book and buy it because of that. And again, not just because everyone is buying it. I also want to buy less books, and I feel like that's mostly from thrifting. because I thrift so many books. Like I've thrifted probably 50% of my library, and I like that. But I will say there's so many books that I had to unhaul because I just bought them because they were such a good deal, and not necessarily because I wanted to read them right then. Which brings me to another point of I don't want to buy a book unless I want to read it within the next month. You know what I mean? And when I buy a book, I don't want to buy an entire series. Read the first book and make sure it's worth it. Potentially even maybe rent it from the library. I definitely want to use my library more this year, which is a tough one for me because I like to annotate my books, and I like the feeling of a floppy paperback that doesn't have that horrendous cover protector on it. But I just want to make better decisions, I feel like, financially. I think that's mostly it for my reading goal. I think really, again, just slowing down and making sure that it's something I want to read for me and not just because other people are reading it. And I also don't want to force myself to branch out if I'm not feeling it, because there were times I was in a fantasy mood that I was like, no, I'm a multi-genre reader, I should read more historical fiction. And I wasn't in that mood, or vice versa, of like, I have all these fantasy books, but I'm really in the mood for literary fiction. So I just want to mood read. I think that's really more so mood reading, but yeah, I just want to follow what I want to read, what sounds good to me, and just go from there. I think that is it. I think I've rambled enough for you guys. Hopefully all my thoughts made sense, and watching me like rap and craft a little bit was something visually interesting too, and not just super distracting. But I kind of like doing impromptu videos like this because hopefully it seems more like we're having a conversation and not like there's this huge production happening and I'm super prepared and have all these things I need to say, but it's just more coming from like what I'm thinking about and what I'm feeling in that moment. It's more like a conversation. But yes, that is the end of this video, and I can't believe we're wrapping up 2025 in general, but specifically my reading year. Like I feel like I've learned so much this year about what I like to read, what I don't like to read, and I've had just such a great time. Like just all of the worlds I've been in this year is crazy. Like thinking about the amount of books that I read and just like all the worlds that I visited because of that is just so fun. It just makes me really excited for next year too, because this year was so good. I feel like next year is going to be a great one too. I'm just super excited, and I'm so excited to just continue to be here on YouTube. I've had such a fun time and just doing my cozy little hobby, which is reading with you guys. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for being here. Let me know what your favorite book of the year was. Or if you're not sure, leave me a little like book stack emoji. I so appreciate you guys being here. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit the follow button and stay a while. I hope you guys had the best reading year this year, and I hope you have an even better one next year. I'll see you guys in my next video.